Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session under the last lap to XAT 2022. Yes, we're going to kickstart the new year with yet another MBA entrance examination. But before we get into what today's session is all about, let's get all the operational issues out of the way. I hope I'm audible. I hope you can hear me clearly. I hope everything is visible, audio, video, everything's working fine. So I would like to hear from you all. All good? Say yeah, I'm waiting for the yeses. I'm waiting for the go-aheads from all of you all so that we can actually go ahead and kickstart today's session. Yet another in this last lap to XAT 2022 that we've been bringing to all of you all to help ensure that you go ahead and score as much as possible and get into your dream B school. Okay, so Aman is saying yes, I'm audible. Great. What about the others? I'd like to hear from the others as well. I hope everything's working fine. Okay. Sluggish, my sluggish life, I love that name. Okay, lovely. Vasudev saying yes as well. Anisha, Shubham, okay, so I've gotten quite a few yeses. Great. So this means, it's all crystal clear, all CC. So let's officially kickstart today's session. So 28th, right? We're on the 28th of December. Two very, very important days coming up. One, a new year beckons, hopefully brings with it a lot of possibilities and hopefully a lot of good news for all of y'all. And second, the second day into the new year, you actually have your next MBA entrance examination. Probably the second most MBA entrance examination or most important MBA entrance examination after CAT. So, we've got loads in store over the next 5 days. Hopefully a little bit of partying around the corner as well. And hopefully a great exam that we go ahead and write. So, today's session, what I'm going to predominantly, focus on is 5 days to XAT 2022. Now, I've broken up this session into multiple parts. Part 1 predominantly is to go ahead and talk a little bit about, what are the important dates to go ahead and keep in mind. Part 2, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what has XAT thrown up over the previous years. What are the kind of cutoffs like? What is it that you need to do in every section to ensure you go ahead and clear your cutoff? What is going to be that safe score in order to ensure that your sectional cutoffs are done and your overall cutoff is cleared as well. And finally, part 3, what should be your strategy to go ahead and actually get to those cutoff scores? How should you go ahead and ensure that you crack XAT 2022, get a call from XLRI and the other top B schools accepting XAT scores, and eventually go ahead and crack the interviews and get into that college. So that's predominantly what we have in store, 3 parts to it. Part 1, let's start off, let's look at what the important dates are, and as always, please go ahead, subscribe to our channel, like this video. I hope you enjoy and I hope you have lots of fun and I'm able to answer all the queries that you have. Okay, so let's kickstart. Let's officially go ahead and get started. So let's look at what the exam pattern is. Now, this is something that all of you all are aware of. I'm sure you all have gone ahead and written enough mocks. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But there is a slight change that has cropped up on the 24th of December when eventually, after 2 delays, XAT decided, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll release the admit card. Let's not go ahead and create any more tension in the atmosphere or in the multiverse, if I might go ahead and, say so. I hope you all have gone ahead and watched your Spider-Man as well. Okay, so coming back here. Once again, predominantly, the question paper remains exactly as it was, 26, 21, 28, part 1 of the paper. I hope that, everybody's comfortable with that. You've gone ahead and, written quite a few mocks with respect to this. The interesting part crops up here. Essay writing has been brought back. Yes, essay writing makes a comeback. Now, over the years, the last 2 to 3 years, we've not seen essay writing. Before that, we've seen essay writing. So some of you all might have this question, what role will essay writing play in order for me to go ahead and get a call? Well, when it comes to getting a call for an interview, essay writing and GK do not play much of a role. In GK, please ensure you score greater than 0. Ensure you score positive marks. That should be more or less enough. In essay writing, don't leave it blank for sure. Go ahead, write something, make a little bit of sense. But yeah, eventually what they're going to go ahead and look at will be during the interview stage when they might actually go ahead and cross question you on a couple of things. I had a student, I think in XAT 2019, if I'm not sure, who, because he or she had gone ahead and scored 0 in GK, was not allowed to sit for the BM interview. So don't score a 0. That's all that I will say. Okay, score greater than 0. Okay, essay writing we'll talk about as we move ahead. So this pattern is known. I'm sure you all are all very comfortable with this. Important thing to keep in mind, something which does not come up in CAT is this. 0.1 mark will be deducted for every unanswered question after the first 8 questions. Now, predominantly how many questions? 75 questions in the paper. That means, say hypothetically, I go ahead and I leave 10 questions. First 8 questions, no negative marking. Next 2 questions, there will be negative marking. That negative marking will be minus 0.2. Barely makes a difference, minus 0.2. And how will that be distributed? It will be distributed in the weight or in the ratio of the number of questions per section. Okay, so if there are 21 questions in decision making, 21 upon 75 into 0.2 is basically the weightage of the negative marking for decision making. Okay, I hope that's clear to you. Okay, now many of you all might think because there is negative marking for leaving out questions, I shouldn't leave out questions. Don't worry too much about it. Imagine I attempt only 50 questions out of 75. Okay, first 8 non-attempted questions, no negative marking. Next 17 negative marking. 17 into 0.1, 1.7 negative marks. That's it. 1.7. That's it. On the flip side, you attempt those questions and you make 3 errors. Humongous. So don't do that. Okay, don't end up attempting questions just for the sake of it. Don't be too worried about this. Okay, that's point 1. Total time limit for the exam. You know the time limit. It's been categorically stated the exam is from 9:30 to 12:40. Seems like 190 minutes. I'm quite sure that in between there'll be about 2 to 3 minutes, which will be like a changeover kind of a thing from paper 1 to paper 2. But the additional 10 minutes is predominantly in play due to the essay that you need to go ahead and write. Okay. So once again, most of you all will finish the GK in about 5, 7, 10 minutes. Remaining time you can spend on the essay. Okay. Just keep that in mind. GK, no negative marking, so don't worry too much. Guess everything. Even if you get 1 or 2 right, good enough. Don't worry too much. 5 answer choices. Keep that in mind. It's not 4, it's 5 answer choices. Something very different from CAT. And you can only proceed to part 2 once you're finished with part 1. So these are predominantly the things to keep in mind with respect to the paper pattern. Once again, I'll state negative marking for non-attempted questions. Don't be too worried. Okay. Some of you all might be thinking essay writing has just come in. What to do? We have a session in store for you, which is being conducted on the 31st of December. Yes, New Year Eve. We didn't want to do it, in the evening at 7 p.m. Once again, didn't want to disturb your New Year plans. So we are keeping it at 2 p.m. on the 31st. Okay. So don't worry too much. Okay. So does essay and GK in XAT consider in other B school apart from XLRI? Good question, Soumya. Most of the B schools do not have a look at it. And once again, I'll repeat, if you've gone ahead and scored at least 2-3 marks out of 25 in GK, it should be safe for any B school, even if they start considering it. Okay. GK is not going to be very, very important. Don't worry about it. What I'll do is I'll also showcase you the percentile marks for GK for last year's XAT so that you have a basic understanding of what it was. Okay. Don't worry about GK. However, in that additional 20-25 minutes that will be given to you after paper 1, don't while away your time. Sit down, spend a little bit of time, get your 3-4 marks in GK, write a decent essay, because if it does come up in any interview, it is something great to talk about, especially if they pick up the essay and they state, you wrote this regarding COVID and the policies. Why did you write this? Don't you think this would have happened? This is the interview moving in a direction that you are comfortable in, and that is predominantly what you want the interview to move in a direction that you are comfortable in. Okay. Some of you all are asking which section to start off with. I'll get there. Okay. All of you all looking at what are the marks, what are the cutoffs. I'll get to all of that. One entire section is devoted to that. Okay. Don't worry too much. Okay, if we mark all 25 GK as option C, 5, 6 right, will that be enough? Yeah. So, probability, I know it goes ahead and showcases 1/5, 1/5, 1/5 because there are 5 options. So, hopefully I'll get 1/5 of the questions right if all are marked C. Not necessary that happens, but I'm quite sure you'll get at least 2 or 3 marks. So, yeah, you can surely go ahead and do that. Don't worry too much about it. But, go ahead. That GK anyways, they look at it as practice, when it comes to your interview stage, because many of those questions can be picked up. And XLRI, IIM Kozhikode, IIM Indore, these are some of the institutes where really love their GK, especially GK revolving around geography and polity. They do ask a lot of questions around that. So, just preparing a little for it, looking at the kind of questions there are doesn't really hurt you. Okay. For the other sections, don't worry too much. I'm getting there. Okay. I'm getting there. Somebody is saying I haven't attempted any mock till date. Is 1 mock a day from now good enough? So let's put it this way. Second is your exam. You should not write any mock on the first for sure. So that means if you start writing mocks from tomorrow, that's 29th, 30th, 31st, 3 mocks at max. That should be good enough. Ideally, I would have suggested if you had 3-4 more days in hand, but that's okay. 29th, 30th, 31st, go ahead and write it. Let's talk about the strategy towards the latter half of this session. And there probably, it will give you a little bit of an inkling as to how to go ahead and attempt those mocks. Let's move to the important dates. Once again, something you're all aware of. So admit card released on the 24th, originally planned for 20th, then 22nd, finally 24th ko aa gaya with the announcement that we are bringing in essay writing as well. So you are aware of this. The exam, it's on the 2nd of Jan. Many of you all might be thinking, when will the result be out? Well, 2 stages. Response sheet you can expect, according to me, anywhere between 18th to 25th. The response sheet. Final results generally take a little bit more time, probably another 10-15 days post that. But 18 to 25th generally when it comes out. I have actually taken a little bit of liberty here by stating 23rd to 29th. This is predominantly for the response sheet. Okay, that is good enough understanding of where you are, where you will be, because we'll be able to estimate the cutoffs at that point in time as well. Okay. Important thing to note, now that your admit card is out, so some of you all who are saying, when will I, that I'm only going to write 2 or 3 more mocks and so on and so forth, please ensure you write all your mocks from 9:30 a.m. From 9:30 to 12:40 is when you should go ahead and write your mock. First write the full 165-minute mock and straight away then go ahead and start your GK, okay? That's the way to go ahead and practice so that you become accustomed to writing exams at 9:30. Also keep in mind, if you're going to write those mocks at 9:30, don't wake up at 8:30 or 9 o'clock to write those, You will need to reach the exam hall. Ideally, you will reach by around 9 o'clock, not later than that, which means look at the distance. If it's about 1.5 hours away, 7:30 you need to leave home. You need to wake up by 6:45, 6:30. So wake up at 6:30, 6:45 and write the mock at 9:30, okay? Do exactly what you would do on the day of the exam. Try to simulate it. That's very, very important, okay? Please ensure you do that, okay? If I'm scoring 13 to 15 GK, is this score will help me during PI or not? Not really, Yash. Not at all. 1 out of 100 students might be asked one question related to GK. But if you score 25 out of 25 also in GK, I don't think it will make a lot of difference. Might be a question, you scored 25, you are great at this, why don't you try UPSC, why are you trying this? Those kind of questions could come up in the interview, but otherwise not really, okay? Those of you all talking about specific sections, I have an entire section there, so don't worry, I'll be getting there, okay? I'll be getting there. Mahima, Ankit, Mansi, I'll be getting to all of that, okay? Now let's look at the difference between XAT and CAT. Predominantly the most important exam you've been focusing on till date over the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months was actually CAT. Now XAT comes into the picture. What are the major differences? Point number 1, level of difficulty. Now the XAT level of difficulty over the years has reduced. Earlier it was a very, very difficult exam. For some of you who are very, very interested in knowing how difficult, look at the XAT 2011 paper. And you'll get a real shock. The 2011 paper, frankly speaking, if you want to look at solving a paper, don't solve that paper. It won't help you in any which way. But if you want to look at difficult papers, that's a good inkling and a good mirror to basically look at what difficult papers can be like. Over the years, last 3-4 years, the level of difficulty has really reduced. It's become much more palatable. So I would say level of difficulty, moderate to difficult, tending more towards moderate on that scale, okay? So that's it in comparison to CAT. In terms of types of questions, we know all questions are MCQs as compared to CAT, where there was MCQ as well as non-MCQ. 48:18 was the ratio there. Here everything, all 75 question MCQs. There is a penalty for non-attempting questions. We've already discussed that, not very, very important. Time per question. Now this is where I want you to concentrate. In CAT, 66 questions, 2 hours. Less than, a couple of minutes per question, almost about 108 seconds or so. Here, you have 75 questions, you've got 165 minutes, and those 75, nobody is looking at attempting all. You're looking at attempting around 50 to 55. Even if you attempt 55, that's about 3 minutes per question. That's humongous. In CAT also, you needed to attempt about 50-55 in order to be assured that you'll, get your 99 odd percentile. Here for a 99 odd percentile, once again 50-55, even though the time is slightly higher. So keep that in mind, which means if you're going at the rate of about 2.5 to 3 minutes per question, chill hai. Nothing to worry about, okay? So overall I stated 132. If you're attempting all, you won't. 50 to 55 questions is basically what you should look at. 3 minutes per question, ideal. Don't worry too much about it, okay? In terms of sections, we already know 2 additional sections, GK and essay, and decision making is different as well. So that's predominantly it from the perspective of what the paper is like and what do we know. Let's have a look at the paper pattern over the years and the cutoffs over the years, because that will help you understand what should be your strategy for every section. Some of you all are saying how to maximize VARC, how to maximize DM, what should I do in quant to clear the cutoff. I'm seeing all of those questions come up. I'll focus on each and every aspect of that, okay? Let's move ahead and let's actually first have a look at what the paper pattern has been over the years. One thing you will notice is paper pattern stable. Absolutely stable, not really changed a lot. Look at this, from 72 to 75 questions over almost 6 years. So that means absolutely no change, nothing to worry about. There is no surprise that is going to be in store. Okay. Second, essay writing, as I told you, making a comeback after 3 years. Now let's look at what is it that the verbal section has thrown up over the last 4 to 5 years. All of you are looking at the verbal section to go ahead and maximize. Now let's look at strategy. What is the way in which I go ahead and do it? Okay, the way I go ahead and do it is always start from the section which is your weakest section, especially in an exam which is a very long exam and where you do not have sectional time limits. There you should always start from a section which is your weakest section. Now if I am in your place, I always feel my weakest section is verbal and LR, so I always like to start with verbal and LR. Why? Because freshest mind for verbal and LR, and I always feel that the section I'm probably the most comfortable in is quant, and generally the cutoff there relative to the total number of questions is also the least. So quant I will take up right at the end. So the paper pattern or the flow of the paper which I like to follow is start with verbal, move to DM, follow it up with quant. This is the pattern that I like to follow. My recommendation to you, start with the section which you feel you are the weakest in. If you feel you are the weakest in quant, start with that. If you feel you're weakest in verbal, start with that. Start with the section you're the weakest in. Okay. Now, if I am starting with verbal, the first thing that comes to my mind is what is the paper going to have in store for me? Now, let's look at what verbal has thrown up over the last 4 years. Now, if I'm looking here, look at RCs 12 to 15, which means on an average 50 to 60% of the paper is RC. Followed up with a poem. Now this is something unique to XAT. Every year there is a poem that comes up and they ask you 2 comprehension based questions on that, and generally it's not easy to decipher. This is generally the place where people end up leaving a question. They always end up leaving the poem in general. Then comes critical reasoning, and what is in store in critical reasoning? Summary, conclusion, assumption, inference based, main ideas, a paragraph specific that I give you a paragraph and then I state which of the following, if true, will further strengthen what the author is trying to state. Which of the following, if false, will weaken what the author is trying to state. Those kind of questions constantly keep cropping up, correct? Those kind of questions are predominantly, go ahead and come up in the critical reasoning section. That once again is like RCs. In CAT you witness these questions. If true, which of the following which strengthen what the author is trying to state. So if I'm looking at all of these 3 combined, if I'm looking at all of this, that is close to about 75 to 80% of the paper which is predominantly comprehension based. And this is where verbal becomes exciting, because if you start off with verbal with a fresh mind and tell yourself, I'm going to give myself ample time, I'm going to give myself 35 to 40 minutes to read close to about 6 RCs. I'm just going to read them, and with every RC there are going to be 2 or 3 questions. This is where you will be able to go ahead and ace it. It's almost like CAT. You always start off with verbal and RC in CAT. V and RC, generally what used to happen in those 40 minutes, you would all turn around and state, I was able to do 3 RC and say verbal logic, or some of you all would come out and say I was able to do 4 RC. The way I would like to look at this is, if I'm spending 45 minutes on RCs, okay, 45 minutes on VARC, which is the RC and logical reasoning section, 40 minutes go to RCs and 5 to 7 minutes to non-RCs. Now in this 40 minutes, if I'm able to go ahead and look at, what am I? I'm talking about almost close to about 20 odd questions. If I'm able to attempt even about 15-16 of them with about 75% accuracy, get 12 right and 4 wrong, which means you scored 11 plus already. You are golden. You are absolutely golden. But this is where you will need to spend your time. Don't turn around and state RCs is not going to be the place where I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to spend my time on verbal logic, on grammar and so on and so forth. Yes, that is where you'll be able to get 2 or 3 additional marks, which is why I'm leaving 5-7 minutes for that. But this is the place. RCs and critical reasoning is where you're going to go ahead and maximize, and you need to give it time. You need to give it due justice. It's not going to be easy, which is why I'm saying 40 minutes devoted here. And even in those 40 minutes, out of 20, you attempt 15, get 11, 12 right, 3, 4 wrong, you're fine. So don't worry. I'm reiterating myself. Do not worry too much about that. Okay. One thing that generally comes up is the kind of passages. Now, over the years, over the last 2 to 3 years, you will see that the length of the passages has also reduced. That's an advantage in XAT. They are no longer giving 750 word, 800 word passages, something that we all saw in IFT. In IFT, couple of passages were very, very long, 700 words plus. Here, you will not face that issue. So, the length of the passages is also okay. Some dense passages for sure. If you find a passage to be dense, leave it, move on to the next one. Ideally, if I'm looking at critical reasoning and I'm looking at RCs, you'll be able to leave close to about 5-6 questions with ease, without worrying. And in the remaining attempts, if you got about 75% accuracy, you're golden, okay? So couple of questions. Let's see what is it that you all have stated. Sir, is this, in this point 1, deduction for leaving over 8 questions section wise? Yes, it is. I had already explained. Imagine that you've left 10 questions, 75 questions, you've left 10. That means you get penalized for 2 questions, first 8 you don't. That means the penalization is 0.2, correct? This 0.2 is going to be bifurcated over the 3 sections, okay? Which means 8 questions that you've left out of the 75, you don't get penalized for. Every additional question that you leave out of the 75, you get penalized for. How does the penalization work? If I did not attempt 10 questions, total penalty is 0.2. How will it be distributed? DM, there are 21 questions, so 21 on 75 into 0.2. So many marks will be deducted in DM. Okay, in quant and DI, say there are 28 questions, so 28 upon 75 into 0.2, so many will be deducted in quant and DI, and so on and so forth. I hope that is clear. Okay, some of you all are asking questions related to quant. I'll pick that up when I go to the quant section. Okay, for now, verbal and LR, any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll once again repeat, the kind of questions that come in critical reasoning, they are predominantly summary type. What will be the ideal summary? They are predominantly inference based. They are conclusion based, assumption based. Which of the following, if true, would further strengthen? Which of the following, if true, will go against what the author was saying, and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of questions that come up. Spend time here. Do not be rushed. XAT is one paper where you do not need to feel rushed at all. Just chillax. Absolutely chill. Okay. Don't worry at all. Clear? So what is the cutoff for quant? We'll get to the cutoffs. We'll get to the cutoffs. Don't worry. There are 2 or 3 predominant slides on that. But this is it from verbal and RC. I hope that goes ahead and helps you understand what it is. In general, between FIB, grammar and vocab, these 3 which generally seem easier, you'll get about 5 questions. All 5 you should attempt. It should not take you more than about 4 or 5 minutes. Out of these 5, you should get about 3 correct. Now, parajumbles, generally 5 statement parajumbles. Once again, you get 1 right and 1 wrong also, no problem. So if I'm looking at about the 7 questions that will come here between parajumbles and vocab, from parajumbles to vocab, these 7 questions, you get about 3-4 right and you get about the remaining wrong. That's fine. 4 right, 3 wrong, you're still looking at about 3 marks more. If you get close to about 10 or 11 out of the comprehension based question and 3 marks here, 13, 14 in verbal will be stupendous. You would have done very, very well. Okay. Again, sir, how much should we score in GK section for a good score for XLRI interviews? GK does not matter for XLRI interviews. Just score greater than 0. That's it. Okay. Does not matter at all. Okay. So don't worry. Cool. MBA karna hai mujhe. Okay, so you can go ahead and talk to a counselor. The number has been given there. I hope that kind of goes ahead and answers it. Okay, so your questions are done. Let's move on to the next slide with respect to decision making. Now, some of the things. For example, everybody knows that there are generally 7 caselets that come up. Till about XAT 2018, one of the caselets used to be quant based caselet. It used to be almost like an LR set. Over the last 3 years, no quant based caselet. So you can assume that all 7 will be caselets which are non-LR type. Okay. Now, generally 7 caselets, 21 questions. Most of the caselets are basically, 3 questions per caselet, as simple as that. Earlier in XAT 2019, there were 2 caselets with 4 questions as well. But over the last 2 years, all 7 caselets with 3 questions. But the interesting part is what kind of question crops up? What kind of caselets do they focus on? Okay. Sahash is saying, is it not 0.1? It is 0.1 for every question post the first 8 which is unattempted, Sahash. Okay. So if you do not attempt 10 questions, first 8 no negative, next 2 negative, 0.1 into 2, 0.2. Okay, clear? I hope that helps you understand. Let's come back here. So over the years, specifically looking at it from the context of the last 4 or 5 years, what are the genres that have come up? The most important genres is business-based caselets. you know, in order to maximize profits, what will I do? I'm looking at expanding my business. I'm looking at setting up a construction business. I'm looking at setting up another unit. Who should be heading that unit? What are the things I should look at? I'm looking at setting up a water, you know, refining unit next to the Ganges or next to some river. Is it ethically right to do this, and so on and so forth? So business based, wherein you need to keep in mind ethicality is a very, very important point, but along with ethicality there has to be business orientation as well. That means revenue and profits also need to be looked at. Ethicality will be given most importance, followed by that then it needs to make business sense as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. For example, last year there was a caselet on a consultant, you know, who made a rash remark, and you know, the client did not like it. So what is an action? The action would be you move the consultant from that project to the other. It won't be I will give the consultant another chance because it's a new consultant, and so on and so forth. Business logic states if the client is not happy, you remove the consultant from that project, move him to another project. Okay, so keep that in mind. Business logic is important, but after ethical logic. Ethical logic predominance, then business logic. Okay, next type which comes up a lot is HR based. So, you know, what should the HR be doing? Or for example, they'll give you an ethical conundrum. They'll say you have a friend in office, and that friend, you saw him taking some money out of the locker. Then later on you realized his wife was really unwell and you needed the money. Despite repeated requests, he was not getting it. What to do? So on and so forth. Okay? Those kind of questions come up. Okay, so that's an ethical conundrum, generally something which is HR based. Some of you are talking about cutoffs. I have an entire section devoted to that. Guys, I'll get to the cutoffs. Don't worry. Okay. Then what are the two other kinds? One is PR, education. You know, who should be my brand ambassador? I am looking at doing something, spending a lot of money. I'm looking at promoting my product. I'm looking at getting a brand ambassador, but this is a problem with brand ambassador A, this is with B, this is a C. What will be the best course of action? Those kind of questions come up. Okay. Next, kingdom based, and this is something you would have seen, you know, if you look at the XAT previous year papers, you would have seen that, you know, they always turn around and say there is a kingdom. In that kingdom something is happening, and you know, the king wants to do something. What is it that he or she should do? So kingdom based caselets also come up. Predominantly these kind of caselets which cover the 7 caselets that come up. Okay, so I hope that is crystal clear in terms of the kind of caselets that come up. What are the kind of questions? Let's look at this. The most important type of question, and I think there is a slight typo here in terms of the type of question, you know, the numbers, I think there has been a slight mistake, but the most important type of questions that come up is, you know, course of action and if true and false. Now, if true and false, generally you get about 8 or 9 questions, and course of action you generally get about 8 or 9 questions. These are two generally which are the most important. The remaining are arranging in a particular order. For example, they will say, you know, they'll give you a caselet where they will say the HR has to make a particular decision. In the order of importance or in the order which you feel correct, what should be the order of decisions they should make? That means 5 should be made first, then 4, then 2, then 1, then 3, and so on and so forth. So, you know, the order in which the decisions will be made, those kind of questions come up. So these are the 3-4 types of questions that generally come up. Most important, course of action, if true, false, then. If true, false, then is almost like your critical reasoning. If the following is true, then will the king of kingdom 2 go ahead and do this? Yes or no? So if this is true, if that is false, will this happen, will that happen, and so on and so forth. In general, if you ask me, arranging in a particular order is not always easy. So those 3 or 4 questions are slightly tricky. Over the years, you would have also seen that, you know, sometimes when they ask you a course of action, they turn around and state which of the following courses of action would be apt. And they give you 5 courses of action, and option 1 is 1 and 2. Option 2 is 1, 3 and 4. Option 3 is only 1. Option 4 is 1, 3, 4 and 5. Option 5, all 5. Those kind of questions also come up, and they are very, very tricky because you will feel one of the options is incorrect, but that also turns out to be true. So be careful. Generally, the way I like to look at it is I turn around and state, since there are 21 questions and the cutoff generally never crosses about 8, 9, you should ideally be looking at attempting at least 6 caselets. If you are attempting anywhere between 17 to 18 questions with about 65% accuracy, you would have done well. Okay, and I'll get to the cutoffs to talk a little bit about what the cutoffs are, which will help you understand why I am stating what I'm stating. Okay, that will come towards the latter half. Okay, next is quant. So I'm saying, is there sectional cutoff for verbal is different from engineers and non-engineers? We will get there. We will get there. There is a lot that you have to go ahead and see in terms of sectional cutoffs, because it is different for HRM and it is different from BM. For BM, they don't break it up like that. For HRM, they break it up gender-wise and engineer, non-engineer wise. So all of that is there. For BM, it is not there. Okay. What to do with poem if not getting its meaning? Leave it, Anand. If you don't understand head or tail, it's going completely over you. Don't waste time. It's 2 questions. Leave it. Move on. Okay. Leave it. Move on. Those of you are talking about cutoffs, I have an entire section there. Just give me about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and I'm getting to those. Okay, I'm getting to the cutoffs. Let's talk a little bit about QADI. Let's look at what is in store. You heard me harp on this multiple times. When it comes to MBA entrance examinations in India, arithmetic plus algebra, arithmetic plus algebra. In XAT, add one more thing, geometry. Arithmetic plus algebra plus geometry generally leads to about 80-85% of the paper. Look at the last year, 15 out of 19 to 20 questions. Here 16, here 18, here 14 again. So 14 to 18 out of 19-20. Why am I saying 19-20? Generally, there are about 8 or 9 questions which go to DI. Okay. Now, my way of looking at this section. This is the part where you need to go ahead and ace. This is the place, these 8 or 9 questions where you need to spend time. Now, generally, the way I do it is, I like to spend almost 75 minutes on quant and DI. 75 minutes. That's a lot of time. Now, out of those 75 minutes, even if you take out 15 to 20 minutes for DI, 15 to 20 minutes if you take out here to look at those 3 DI sets and say, every DI set I will take my 7 minutes to do 2 questions or 3 questions. I will take 6 minutes to deconstruct all this entire graph into a table and then I will answer from there. Do it. It is worth it. Why? Because if in those 20-25 minutes, you go ahead and out of this 9, you score about 6 marks, you're done. You're golden. And that is what you need to aim for. DI is something you should maximize. Sometimes it's very, very bad to look at. Sometimes the numbers are random. They give very, very random numbers. It's difficult to understand and comprehend, but take your time. Take your time. Spend enough time on it. Look at what they are trying to state. Approximate. If the options are far apart, go ahead, estimate, go ahead and do it. According to me, it makes a lot of sense to spend 20-25 minutes on DI if you're going to spend 75 minutes on QADI, because that still leaves you with about 50-55 minutes. And the quant the quant cutoff generally is about 10, okay, 9 or 10. So this is the place where you need to go ahead. If you have gotten your 6 in DI, you just need about 6-7 in quant. That means in 50 minutes, even if you attempt only 8-9 questions, that's almost 5-6 minutes per question, you can still go ahead and clear the cutoff. Okay, so that is something that you should really look at. Somebody is asking, is that really crackable in the next 5 days considering some prep has already been done? Absolutely. I will categorically go ahead and state yes. Why? 2 things. Number 1, stay calm, don't get hurried in the paper. Okay. Number 2, be very clear how you are looking at clearing the sectional cutoffs. Like I stated in quant DI, you know you need to ace DI. So spend 20-25 minutes on DI. Most people miss that. They start off with quant, and in quant they are not able to attempt more than 8-9 questions or 10 questions. Out of that also they get 2 or 3 wrong. Sectional cutoff does not happen. Rather start with DI, spend 25 minutes there. Be very, very sure that you're getting 5-6 marks. Now all that you need from quant is 5-6 marks. 5-6 marks in 50 minutes, easy. Easy, nothing to worry about. Similarly, in decision making, be very, very clear on the type of questions that you like, which is why the core practice for XAT in decision making is from previous year papers. Pick up XAT 2010 to 2021. Okay, that's about 11-12 years. Leave XAT 2020. XAT 2020 DM was pathetic. XAT 2020, half of the answers in DM I still don't buy. I don't know what they did, which is why the cutoffs were so low. When I talk about XAT 2020, you'll be astounded to see the overall cutoff. Leave XAT 2020. Look at all the other year papers. You know, for the first 5-6 years, you will find anywhere from 10 to 15 questions. The last 5-6 years, you will find 18 to 21 questions. You're looking at close to about 150 odd questions over the last 10 years. Solve all those 150 questions of DM. That's your practice of DM. Nothing else is needed. All of those 150 questions, understand the logic. Basis that you will understand what is it I'm comfortable in, what type of questions, what genres. That should be your DM practice. Similarly, in verbal and RC, focus needs to be on the comprehension based questions. RC, critical reasoning, poem. You don't understand poem, throw it into the dustbin. RC plus critical reasoning, close to about 18 to 20 questions. Can you attempt 14, 15? Can you attempt it with 70-75% accuracy? Can you get even 10 marks from RCs? You're done, you're golden. The remaining 5-6 questions, you'll surely get 3 or 4 marks. Even if you get 2.5, you're good. 11 to 12 in verbal, you would have done brilliantly. Okay, so do not worry too much. 100% you can crack it. Have the correct strategy. Know what resources to tap into. Previous year XAT papers, mocks. These are the only resources to tap into. Okay, only 2 things to focus on. Clear? So please tell the concept of attempting or unattempting questions. I am so confused. What is the meaning of that? Mansi, I didn't understand the question. What is the concept of attempting or unattempting? I didn't understand what that means. Can you please repeat your question so that I can answer that? Okay. So XAT predominantly, you know, when it comes to QA, QA plus DI, this is what I want you to focus. Once again, arithmetic, algebra and geometry. If we start looking at the level of difficulty, guys, most of the questions you will see are between moderate to difficult. Not all questions are difficult. Most are between moderate to difficult, but there are also sitters. You will surely find sitters in arithmetic and algebra. Out of the 10-11 questions here, there will be about 3 questions which are absolute sitters. So if you are able to identify the sitters, you will be able to do very well for yourself. So the level of difficulty is something that you should focus on as well, especially when it comes to arithmetic and algebra, because you will find a lot of questions which are attemptable. Okay. So quants is troubling me a lot, and XAT quant is tough. What are the basic logics to get at least 7? I just explained that, Celeb, I just stated. Try maximizing DI. Are you spending your 25 to 30 minutes on DI? Spend those 25 to 30 minutes on DI. If you are able to spend those 25 to 30 minutes, 30 is thoda, a little too much. I will say 20 to 25. If you are able to do that, you will get your 6 marks. If you are able to get 5-6 in DI, you're not looking a lot from quant. You're only looking for about 5-6 marks in 50 minutes. Now let me ask you, do you think you're capable enough of scoring 5-6 marks in 50 minutes in quant? I'm sure 99% of you all will say yes. Especially if you look at arithmetic and algebra as the core focus with a couple of questions of geometry brought in. DI karo. You know, I couple of more languages. I know Bengali. DI korte hobe. I don't know any other language. So 3 languages I'm focusing on. DI, very, very important. Don't leave DI. Earlier years we used to say DI difficult, leave it. Now I'll say DI, do it, because it's not as pathetic as it used to be earlier. Since it's gone online, it's easy. Okay, to look at the data set and understand. Okay, I'm able to solve like 14-15 questions with 85% accuracy in quant, but sometimes I'm not even able to solve 7-8. This happens whenever the mocks and previous year papers is geometry heavy. What to do? So let's look at the previous year papers. Geometry heavy means what? Geometry heavy means at max 6 questions out of 28. 6 questions out of 28. That is what? 22%, 23%. So that's not very geometry heavy, na? Substitute geometry with DI. Imagine you do 0 in geometry. DI, can you go ahead and get 6 marks? And in the remaining quant questions, can you go ahead and get about 4-5 marks? You've got your 10-11, which means 14 attempts with 85% accuracy would anyways mean 12 right and 2 wrong, which is 11.5. You will get 11 through this method as well. So more or less in sync with what you do. So don't worry. So what should we do in the remaining 3 days? I'm only doing revision per chapter a day and solving 1 mock a day. What should I do? I'll get to that, Abhilash. Okay, I have a section to that. Last 3 days, what to do, what should be your strategy. I'll get to that. Okay, but before that, let's have a look at the analysis of the GK section ever so slightly. Not very important, but yeah, for some of you, in case you are worried, don't be. Does not matter. Predominantly, these are the areas to focus on. What do I always state? Sports. Other than XAT 2020, almost every year sports comes up. 1 or 2 easy questions, go ahead, answer, move on. 1 cricket, 1 generally football or tennis. Generally these 2 questions do come up, okay? Other than that, whatever you're comfortable with, personality and awards will be easy as well. Okay, have a look at who are the personalities who got awards from the president this year. Okay, what is it? Usme se 1 or 2 questions will surely come up. Okay, now all of those who have been harping on me, what are the cutoffs? Let's have a look at that. So the cutoffs, I have a lot of slides. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to look at cutoffs from XAT 2016 to 2020, percentile wise and score wise, and then XAT 2021 a little more comprehensively to understand what cutoffs really are. Now look at XAT 16 to 20. In general, if I'm looking at verbal, Verbal for BM 78, 79, 79, 79, 74, which means greater than equal to 80 percentile and you're golden. Greater than equal to 80 percentile and you're golden. So what will I do? I'll make a table here, okay? Let's call it BM, let's call it HRM, and let's call it cutoffs. So I'll call this 80 percentile here. Okay, in HRM, verbal 69, 80, 79, 85, 79. Now one thing you will realize, other than XAT 2016, almost every year, the cutoff of the verbal section for HRM is equal or higher than the cutoff for the verbal section in BM. Because verbal becomes more important from an HRM perspective, okay? So once again, if you end up scoring 85 percentile plus, you'll be golden, okay? Let's look at it from a quant plus DI. This is where it becomes interesting. BM में quant needs you to score almost 90 percentile. But in HRM, 69, 70, 70, 72, 75, which means suddenly it drops by about 5 percentile points, come down to about 75. Okay, and finally in decision making, you have 78, 77, 77, 80 and 78, which means I would look at it at 80 percentile. If you score above 80, you would have done well. And when you're looking at HRM, 69, 72, 71, 75, 73, which means look at close to about 75 plus. But what do all of these percentiles mean? Sir, what does sitters mean? Sitters means easy. Absolutely simple, absolutely lallu question in Hindi, lallu, asan in Hindi. In English, sitter, very, very easy, okay? That's basically what sitter is. I leave geometry full still 10 to 11 due to DI and arithmetic. Absolutely, Hemant. You'll still get that, right? Scoring 20 to 23 in quant, 13 to 8. Please tell how to clear verbal sectional. Sarthak, I've already discussed that, right? Verbal sectional. The sectional cutoff is just 7-8 marks. Aim to score 8 plus and you're done. My recommendation to you, if you are looking at only clearing the sectional, you only want 7-8 or more. Only 7-8 or more. Look at the non-RC part. There are about 5-6 questions there. Try getting 3-4 marks there in the first 10-15 minutes. The remaining half an hour, you are only looking for 4-5 questions. So break it down into a goal, Hemant. Break it down into a goal. Okay. Your goal is you are looking at 9 to 10 marks in verbal. Okay. Can you get 3 marks from grammar, parajumbles, vocab and fill in the blanks? Then you need only 5 or 6 marks from the remaining. That's the way to look at it. Break it down into smaller goals. Okay? Cool. Now what does all of this translate into scores? What does all of this translate into scores? This is the important slide, not the percentiles, the scores. So let's look at this. Now in general, if somebody were to go ahead and ask me, what would be a safe score and what should be a target score that you should be looking at? Okay. For BM, if you are looking at verbal, look at this 7, 7, 7.28 and look at 2020. Remember, I promised you that 2020 will give you a shocker. Look at how bad the paper was. The cutoff in verbal was 2.6. 3 question karke aate, all 3 right and you are done. You are God. You've got almost 80 percentile at 2.6. Crazy paper. So forget 2020. Don't even look at that paper. Dumb paper. Okay, forget it. Don't look at it. And overall cutoff 21.46. Imagine, lallu. So please don't focus on XAT 2020 at all. So if I'm looking at BM, overall, in general, in verbal, you need a score of 8 plus. And this is what I was telling somebody right now. To Hemant, I think, 2 minutes back when Hemant was saying how to clear the cutoff. You just need 8 plus. 8 plus, that's it. You don't need to worry too much. 8 plus. Us 8 mein can you get 3 from grammar, from parajumbles, from fill in the blanks and from vocab? If you get 3, there'll be 6 questions there. Get 4 right, 2 wrong. Get 3 right, 3 wrong. Even then it's 2.25. You just need 5-6 questions. That's it. Okay, you just need 5-6 marks other than that from the RCs. Okay. Now let's look at the same for HRM, 7.5, 7.5, 7.7, 8.7. So generally I say 9 plus. For HRM, look for a 9 plus for verbal. So let's know what our good scores are, what our target scores are. So target scores. Okay. What is the target score in quant? 8.5, 8.5, 11.31, 11.5, 7.8. This is where it becomes tricky. You need 12 plus. Which is why I constantly state DI, go ahead and get 6 in DI. Then you only need about 6-7 marks from the remaining quant. That means out of 19-20 question you need 6-7. DI is the place to maximize. For HRM, it suddenly changes and it's down to only 7 plus. Just imagine, only 7 plus. So those of you looking at HRM, you only need 7 marks. That means you get all your DI right, you get 6, 7 in DI, you need nothing in quant. You can leave entire quant, get everything from DI. Even that possibility remains for you. So keep that in mind. Decision making, 7.5, 8.5, 8.43, 9, 5.9, which means 9 plus. And for HRM, it basically means look at 8.5 plus. So once again, 9 plus. Overall, I generally like to state, look at a target score of 35 plus for BM and look at a target score of close to about, generally about 32 plus for HRM. There was one anomaly in the year 2018 when the paper was quite easy, which is why you see 11.31 suddenly, cropping in 8.43, 7.2, all higher sectionals. It was a crazy easy paper. I don't expect that to happen again. If that happens anyways, all of your scores will increase by some 10, 15, 20% and this 35 will automatically move up by about 3.5 marks. So 38.5, 39 milega. But this should generally be your target score. Cursed year 2020. Okay, yeah, it was cursed in more ways than one, right? Cursed in more ways than one. XAT 2020 will be last year. It will be last to last year, Mahima. 2021 का तो मैं अभी बात करूँगा. Last year was XAT 2021. This year the paper is going to be XAT 2022. Okay. Marks required for final convert, I will get then. But before that, let's talk about XAT 2021, the exam that happened in January 2021. Now this is where it becomes very, very interesting. Let's have a look at it. What I've done is, I've created two tables for you. One table, which is a score based table, which means percentile corresponding to scores. And the second is the sectional percentile cutoffs and the overall percentile cutoffs. And this is almost like a DI set. Look at table 2, go back to table 1 and understand what the score cutoff would be. Okay. So let's try to decipher this DI set in front of us. Okay. Let's look at this. क्या बोल रहा है हमें? BM male. Now look at this. This is where male, female, engineer, non-engineer, everything will come into the picture. Male for BM, which is business management, quant you needed 83 percentile. Last year quant 85 percentile was at 9. So 83 would be how much? It will be about close to 8.75. So 8.75 is what was needed. And look at the quant cutoff. This is the highest. That means anybody who scored greater than 8.75 probably cleared the cutoff. So the last year cutoff was 8.75. Okay? Why do I feel like किस्मत ऐसी है, DI एकदम hard हो जाएगा? Trust me, if that happens, Riya ki ऐसी किस्मत है and DI becomes hard, the cutoffs will also drastically fall. The cutoffs will guaranteed fall. For example, XAT 2020 में भी quant का cutoff 5.9 हो गया ना, cutoff will fall by 2-3 marks. So automatically it will balance itself out. So don't worry too much, ठीक है? But generally नहीं होगा. Even if DI is hard, you spend 20-25 minutes, you'll be able to solve 2 sets. You'll get your 3-4 marks at least. So don't worry too much about it right now. ठीक है? किस्मत को मत कोसो अभी. Okay, coming back here. Now let's look at verbal. Verbal, highest if you look at is actually for an HR male engineer and HR female engineer. Now look at this, weird, right? They are saying if you're an engineer, your percentile cutoff for the verbal section will be higher than a non-engineer's. I always used to think it will be the other way around. Wherein they will say, yaar engineer to acha hai, they score well in quant, DI. Verbal, we should look at the non-engineers. No, even here engineers need to score higher even in verbal. So look at it, the cutoffs for verbal for engineers 80 percentile. Now look at 80 percentile in verbal, 8.25. So this was the cutoff, highest possible cutoff in verbal, 8.25. Highest possible in quant, 8.75. Sorry, I looked at DM. Verbal 8.5. Okay. Now let's look at DM. What was it in DM? The highest sectional cutoff is only 75 percentile. Again, HR male engineer. So some of you all who are cursing yourselves again that I'm a general engineer male. Yes, for mostly all the sectionals are also going to be the highest for you across BM and HR. So don't be too annoyed. You know this going into the exam. Prepare accordingly. Write your paper accordingly. But the cutoff at 75 percentile will be close to how much? 75 percentile will be close to about 7.8. 7.8 to 8. So that's predominantly what we are looking at. And overall BM male 94. Now 94 will be something like 30 marks. And 92 which is for a female, will be something close to about 28.5 marks. So for a female to get an BM call 28.5, for a male to get a BM call score of 30. Now some of you all are thinking, okay, some of you all are thinking ki yaar, okay, I clear the sectional cutoffs, I clear the overall cutoffs, XLRI calls me, but what is the percentile I need to finally clear and actually land up at XLRI? Now I'll tell you, I have a student from XAT 2020 who actually scored 95.9 percentile and is currently studying at XLRI doing BM. So it's not that it does not happen. At 96.9, not 95.9, 96.9, so they are there. Okay. What is so funny? There's somebody saying this is so funny. What is so funny? I don't know. Repeat that. SA and GK to sirf XLRI consider karega na IMT. Even XLRI will not consider. I am once again repeating, SA and GK nobody will consider. 1 out of 100 students might be asked something. 1 out of 100 students might be asked something. Okay. Just score greater than 0. SA don't worry too much. So overall, basically predominantly what you need to go ahead and look at is aim for a score above 35. Last year, basis the level of difficulty you can see, in order to score about 97 percentile, which is safe to convert with a good interview, you needed 32.75. My recommendation to everybody is aim to score 97 percentile plus. 97 percentile plus. 35 plus is a good goal to have. It will generally mean, you know, you'll clear the cutoff in every year. It will be very, very close to a 98, 99. But ideally 33 plus, and you've done very, very well. You have a very good chance of converting XLRI if you have a good interview. Okay, 97 plus. So is there no difference in engineering, non-engineering from BM program? No, last year there was no difference in engineering and non-engineering from a BM program. Okay, today I am thinking, why I am an engineer? Tension mat lo yaar. You know, look at it this way. To get a call, difficult for engineers. But eventually in the college, the percentage of engineers is always higher than the percentage of non-engineers. What does that mean? Probably converting a call is easier for engineers as compared to non-engineers, and mainly because non-engineers have this extra baggage of having done so many subjects which are common to an MBA degree, that when their technical knowledge is tested, the expectation from the panel is a lot more than that from an engineer. So an engineer works much harder to get the call, but probably converting the call is slightly easier. So this stage is difficult for you. Conversion stage will be slightly easier. Look at that. That is the positive mindset that I would recommend all of you should have. Don't think I'm an engineer, oh my god, difficult. It's difficult to get it, the call, but converting it easier. Okay, look at it from that perspective. Okay. Sir, verbal cutoff for engineer, exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. You know, even I found that surprising. I always used to feel verbal cutoff for non-engineers will be slightly higher than engineers. Nahi, alag hai. Is 27-28 a good mark for HRM non-engineering male? Look at non-engineering HR male. Overall cutoff was 90. Last year 90 percentile was at 27. I will say that's tricky because that's borderline. You should look at a score of close to about 30. Close to about 30. Okay. If GKS is not considered, why do they even have those sections? You know, if XLRI allows you to ask this question, do you have any question for us? Why don't you ask this? But that is like, you know, bolte hain na apne pair pe kulhadi marna. Don't do that. They'll turn around and state, oh, you're absolutely right. Should I go ahead and ask you a few questions on that essay or the GK questions that came up? So don't do that. But yeah, you know, I always feel that that is one of the questions that a student should ask. Why do you make us sit for these additional, you know, 25 minutes when you're not even going to talk about it and you're not even going to rate this? What is the point? Yahi hai, pata nahi kya hai. सर क्वांट में प्रॉब्लम उनको कैसे टैकल करे? सो रजत, एज आई स्टेटेड, फोकस ऑन डीआई नॉट ऑन क्वांट. डीआई में मार्क्स ले आओ, क्वांट में लुक एट इट फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ 45 मिनट्स कैन आई स्कोर 5-6. DI aim for 5-6. You will be golden. You will be good to go. Okay. Overall, what is my recommendation of a strategy on how to attempt this paper? Okay. My recommendation is this. I start with verbal. Okay, verbal, I give it about 45 minutes. My aim is out of 26 questions, I generally like to attempt about 22. And if it's at about 70% accuracy, I know, say I will get 15 right and 7 wrong. Now 15 right, 7 wrong. 7 wrong is I'm losing 1.75. That's 13.25. I'm aiming for a 12.5 plus. I want to maximize verbal. One, it is at the beginning. Second, verbal may, if you are in the flow, if you're in the RC, you can go ahead and do it. Okay. Guys, I'm constantly getting this. Go ahead and like the video if you're liking this. I'm hopeful that you're liking this. I'm hopeful that some of your queries are going ahead and being answered. Hopefully you're understanding which section you need to go ahead and do. Okay, and focus on. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to our channel. Come on. What are you waiting for? Let's come back here. In general, 22 questions I'd like to see. Now imagine if you're not good at verbal. Okay, imagine if you're not good at verbal. Let's say you attempt, say 16. Us 16 mein, can you go ahead and get 12 right and 4 wrong? Even then you will go ahead and score somewhere around 11, which is a very, very safe score, and it should be good, from the entire bigger picture perspective. So if you are good at verbal, look at 22 attempts. Not good at verbal, look at 15, 16 attempts. That's the way I would look at it. Decision making, generally I'm quite sure most of you all attempt everything. Okay, generally I'm quite sure that most of you all attempt everything. It's not that you go ahead and leave out a lot in decision making. On an average, you attempt 17, 18, and look at the accuracy. Least I'm stating at about 65% accuracy. Even if you go ahead and get 12 right and 6 wrong, you'll still get 10 plus. 12 right and 6 wrong still works. That's not a problem. Okay, so focus on that. Okay, so this cutoff is for NCR campus as well. Yeah, think of the NCR campus cutoff being similar. Conversion will be slightly easier. They'll probably look at you at around 95 percentile also. You should be able to convert. Okay. But cutoffs for now, consider it to be the same. There might be 1 percentile difference. Finally somebody is giving, going ahead and stating, Sir gave XAT 2020, got around 21, was sad, but now got to know it was difficult. Mahima, 21, XAT 2020 means the exam that happened in January 2020. If you wrote that and scored 21, you're a stud, yeah. You almost cleared the BM cutoff. You guaranteed cleared the HRM cutoff. So don't worry. Okay. So don't worry at all. Finally, moving to quant, I've given all my secrets away. DI, 100% accuracy. Here focus karo, 20-25 minutes lagao. Quant mein, even if you attempt 10, get 7 right, you've done well. 12.5 plus. This is how I would aim to go ahead and score 35 plus. Ideally, if you are scoring 32 plus, you should be safe. Now, I don't know what the level of difficulty of the paper will be. But now comes the important part. Last 3 days, what to do. Now, I'll tell you what to do. If you've not written any mock, over the next 3 days, ensure you write at least 2. But another important thing to do is ensure you have gone through the last 5 years XAT papers. XAT 2017, 18, 19 and 21. At least these 4, leave 2020. These 4 years XAT papers, look at them seriously. Why am I saying? Then when you sit for XAT on the 2nd of Jan, you will be able to judge every section with respect to these exams. Sir, how is the college ISBR in Bangalore? ISBR is okay. My recommendation is please don't aim for these colleges as of today. Please don't aim for these colleges as of today. These are like backup to your backup colleges. Aim today is XLRI. Backup of XLRI will probably be IMT Ghaziabad. Backup of that will be probably, XIMB. Backup of that will be probably something like an ISBR. So look at it from that perspective. XLRI Delhi will also be good. Look at it from the context of every new IM. When it opens up, eventually it ends up being good. Look at IFT Calcutta doing very well for itself. Okay, so don't worry too much. Tips for DI: don't shy away from spending time. Don't shy away from looking at that data, converting it into table, taking 5, 7, 8 minutes, doing that and then going ahead and doing it. Okay. So scoring 17 plus in DM in mocks, will it help to maximize my overall? Absolutely it will, yeah. It is brilliant. It is brilliant. Also, however, go ahead and balance it with respect to the marks that you are getting in terms of the actual XAT papers. Okay? In terms of the actual XAT papers, how you're going ahead and doing. Okay? Do we need to apply for XLRI NCR campus separately somewhere? No. If you applied for XLRI while applying for XAT, you're done. Okay? Don't worry too much. Okay, so this is predominantly it. My timings, 45 minutes to begin with on verbal, 40 minutes on DM, 75 minutes on quant, and you'll still have 5 minutes spare. distribute it in whichever section you want to, or just go ahead and revise. That's predominantly the way that I would go ahead and attempt the paper. I wouldn't be too worried about it otherwise. Okay, so that's how I would like to look at it. That's it from my end. Next 3 days, the XAT papers guaranteed do that, attempt at least 2 marks. Okay. And yeah, so what is it that we have in store as a part of last lap to XAT? You have 2 more sessions coming your way, tomorrow and day after. Tomorrow with Saral, geometry, numbers, modern math, very, very important. Once again, you can expect about 8-10 questions from here. And finally, verbal logic and grammar with Pradeep, day after tomorrow. Also, because essay writing has been introduced, as I pointed out earlier, on 31st of December at 2 p.m. go ahead and catch Savitri ma'am. She will go ahead and discuss a little bit with respect to the essay writing section and what is it that you should go ahead and keep in your mind. Okay, that's about it. Other than that, we will meet you for the XAT analysis on 2nd Jan. It will be taken by Saral sir and me. We will do it at 3 p.m. on the 2nd. Okay, on the 2nd at 3 p.m. we'll go ahead and meet you. We'll hopefully have a few questions which we'll be able to discuss, and we will decode the entire paper. Hopefully talk a little bit about what could be the expected cutoffs. Okay, great session. Thank you, Ria. Thanks for that, Rishabh. Thanks, Richika, Prakash, Mahima. Oh, great. Good to know that you enjoy the sessions. Good to know that you have fun. Also, one last thing to keep in mind. We've gone ahead and we've launched a very, very specific program for PI VAT for all of y'all. If you go ahead and get calls from the top 10 colleges, we've gone ahead and named them. There is a personalized coaching, personalized mentoring program we've launched in PI VAT. Okay. Which will be taken by me and Srinivas, 50-50 students each. There are only 100 students that we are taking. You will be personally mentored by one of us. We'll take you through the grind. We'll take you through what are the important things. We'll discuss your autobiography. We'll discuss your B school forms. We will discuss the kind of questions, the technical questions to look at, and you will have 3 mock interviews with me as well. So, if you're interested, you can go ahead and have a look at that as well as a program. And in case there are some of you all who are actually looking at CAT 2022, you all just, came up here because 1 year early you wanted to start your preparation. We've got a program for that as well. That's about it from my end. Do subscribe to our channel. Do like our videos. Do go ahead and follow us everywhere. And as always, catch you on the day of the XAT paper. Catch you on 2nd January at 3 p.m. for the analysis. All the very best, guys. I'm sure you will go ahead and put your best foot forward, and I'm sure you will go ahead and have fun. Enjoy the paper, and you'll do too well. Okay, catch you very, very soon. I'll also catch you for another video, 1 day to XAT, my last hello, goodbye, adieu to you before your XAT exam, and hopefully you have a great one. Catch you on the 2nd of January again at 3 p.m. That's it from my end. Ciao. Bye-bye.